Well, I'll start off by adjusting the microphone, but first and foremost, I want to thank you, Frank, for not just the welcome that you provided us, but I want to thank the entire Rinnai America Corporation for your substantial investment in our community. Of course, here in Spalding County and my home county of Fayette County, your impact in our community is well felt. We are honored to be joined today by the United States Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright. And for those of you that remember from our government classes in high school, the Secretary of Energy is 15th in line of presidential succession. So I think, Mr. Secretary, that makes you the 15th most powerful person in the world. Thank you for being here. Secretary Wright is a member of President Trump's cabinet, and I spoke earlier this week to a very good friend of mine, the Griffin Mayor, Doug Holberg, and correct me if wrong, but we believe this may be the first official visit by a cabinet member to Spalding County in its 174-year history. So I'm happy to make history today, and we thank you, Mr. Secretary, for visiting us. We are here today to celebrate the passage and enactment of legislation that repeals a regulation that endangered this plant's prosperity and survival. The story of how it all came to be is a fantastic example of the blueprint of how state and federal partnerships should work. During my campaign for Congress, I spoke at length about my promise to eliminate government overreach and to finally achieve the deregulation that all of us know was needed for our businesses. And last August, I received a phone call right after I had been elected the Republican nominee for our district, but I received a phone call from State Senator Marty Harbin. State Senator Harbin, along with your great county commissioners, Clay Davis and James Dutton, along with state representatives Beth Camp and Karen Mathiak, had been hearing from Rinnai directly, hearing from the people who represent you here in this factory, that there's a real problem. They were concerned that a job-killing regulation in the Department of Energy, and Joe Biden's Department of Energy, was about to come down on this facility. And though I wasn't yet your congressman, Senator Harbin wanted me to be aware of the issue. So last August, we met up in Tyrone at his office, and we drove over and toured this facility, met with the folks in the conference room upstairs, and learned a little bit more about the problem that was coming. We met with a few of your colleagues, including, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge your fantastic General Counsel, Perry McGuire, who's worked overtime to help solve this issue. But your leadership explained that Joe Biden's Department of Energy was expected to impose a new regulation that would increase energy standards to a rate that non-condensing tankless water heaters could never achieve. Simply stated, this regulation would have put this plant out of business. And on December 26, 2024, the day after Christmas, the Joe Biden Department of Energy had our fears come true by imposing this job-killing regulation. So this was December, though, and President Trump had just been elected, and I had just been elected as your congressman. So Rinnai came to me and asked what we could do. First, I connected your colleagues here at Rinnai with Secretary Wright's transition team. One of my good friends, Joe Udo, got in touch with Perry and tried to work things through. And thanks to Secretary Wright's team and everyone that works for him, the great staff at Department of Energy, they started a process by which they could roll back this regulation. But we also wanted to pursue a permanent legislative solution. That's the one nice thing about Congress. You get something passed, it's in canon until something changes. So we decided that we needed to pursue legislative relief. And thankfully, from my first term serving in President Trump's White House, I was there from the first to last day of his first term, I was familiar with a rarely used legislative tool called the Congressional Review Act. And just to brief y'all, the Congressional Review Act allows Congress to repeal any regulation as long as it falls within a 60 legislative day window. So given that this Biden regulation came out in late December, early January, myself and my colleagues introduced a bill to finally repeal this regulation. I led the debate for it on the floor. I managed its flow through the committee process, and I served as its chief whip on the floor. And I gotta tell you, some of your competitors, I'm not gonna mention them by name, but they were coming after me as hard as you could because they knew we were gonna be successful finally repealing this. And in February, just 1 month after we introduced this legislation, and y'all remember, thousands of bills get introduced in Congress in the course of a few months. I was able to persuade House leadership to put it on the floor for a vote where it passed with a bipartisan majority. 210 Republicans and 11 Democrats crossed the aisle to pass this job-saving legislation. And earlier this month, Frank noted, we got this bill fast-tracked in the Senate, where it passed with yet another bipartisan majority, which means that this legislation that specifically saves jobs here in Spalding County, hundreds of jobs here, this specific legislation is one of the first 10 laws of President Trump's second term. This is a massive win for our community, and honestly, it's a really good example of what we can do when we work together. Don't care about who gets credit. We work together and we find and solve solutions that impact your daily life. And I think this success story is one of the many, many accomplishments over President Trump's first 100 days. Secretary Wright has worked overtime to deliver win after win after win for the American people. And that is no surprise, because Secretary Wright accomplished incredible things before he was nominated and confirmed to serve our country. He is a two-term graduate of MIT, so I think you're the smartest person in the room. And at the same time, he is from Colorado, where he founded Liberty Energy, one of America's leading energy companies. He was one of President Trump's strongest supporters during his campaign, and he is now one of his most trusted allies in his cabinet. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the 17th United States Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright.